You want to you want to start with the problem? I think
Talk, please. Go ahead.
I think knowledge is required for any development and for any change, and so we cannot do beyond what we know as a people, as individuals. So if there is any if there is any problem, it should be how we've been taught and how we apply what we've been taught into practice.
So coming to that point, if there's any problem, it depends on what we have been taught. What have we been taught? You and I went to the same institution, different schools, but you have a problem with the educational system. Let's talk about that, and let me come to you as a person. What have we been
All
taught
right. So
helping us?
Okay. So the documents that I have read, a lot of the times I like the history part. The history part is that from the 14th century, earlier than that, we were living in our tribes, in our kingdoms, and we had the way of teaching our own people. Now these Europeans came and they introduced their education. Now the challenge is that the kind of education they introduced, if you look at it as Christians, it was through the European religion that they introduced, which is Christianity, and then they taught our forebears, those who had the to be taught by, they taught them literature, things to read. They taught them about religion, So mainly, right from that place, our education was not something that was centered on reasoning, on being able to develop the mindset of a come out to solve their own problems. Now, Kwame Nkrumah University that we went was started after Kwame Nkrumah became the president, which is just 20 years. Legon, our premium university, just about the same. And if you look at a lot of our heroes and our independent fighters, most of them were not given technical science engineering education, and now that was deliberate. When the time that they were engineers and innovators and everything that could convert your raw materials into product, which will be beneficial, the kind of education that was being given to us was religious education, was the art, was the literature. It was not the science kind of education. And that for me is the bottom line of what we have today.
So, Kwabena, what is the way forward? What is the way forward? Have we identified this and have we embraced it as a challenge to us? If we're able to identify the problem and we know that we want to now change, are we ready to change and move in a direction that will help us as a country?
Okay, so I did engineering from Tech, agric engineering. I did second degree bioprocess engineering in another country, Europe somewhere. Now, when I was schooling, two major things were never taught in our course: the history of Africans, their heroism. Even if you take history in terms of innovation, Africans who had those from the continent, we were not aware of them. Never. I don't remember where the man professor came and said that this theory was postulated by Professor Dujemfi. No, it was always something European, which means by the time that I had gone through the 4-year education, my sense of innovators was purely the white man, the Europeans. Now, at the same time, the engineering education was also devoid of business and finance kind of education. So after 4 years, I come out, I'm technically developed as somebody who can read and repeat what I have read, not to be able to really critically think of situation and come out with solution. And I could not also connect the examples that were there, the great minds of engineering, of science, to mankind, to myself. And so when I come out, where are the industries to work as an engineer, to be trained? Not much. Okay, so majority of my mates who are engineers would end up teaching, end up becoming bank workers. Some of them will enter politics, and then some of them will also start church. this is mainly what we have become. And much of it is because when we were in school, the training was devoid of coming out to solve problems. And those of us who even dare to enter into the private sector and into entrepreneurship were so much ill-equipped. Because for you to become successful, you may have to have a skill that can produce a product that is needed in the economy. You should have the ability to understand numbers, finance, the market. You should be able to manage people, understand how a business is run. Now, much of these were never taught in a school. All right. And I come out, the industry does not also prepare me at all. And then you tell me that why am I not able to do anything? Because I was ill-equipped. And if I open book 2, I'm reading the books about Steve Jobs. I'm reading a book about Elon Musk. Where is the example of my people? Where is the example that I can look at from people who were able to build business in the same environment, that the same culture that I have been brought up? And so if I pick a book from America and I read it, it's fantastic. But when I come to the ground, they are entirely different. The institutional support are different. The people think differently. The needs are different. The financial support is different. The people you have to even employ and manage, they are also different. And so then we are tossed, we are lost in between. So now you have to go back and rediscover yourself, which means by the time that you are 30 years, as an African, graduated from these schools, you are an alien, except the culture and except the church, except the funeral, the naming, the weddings. But when it comes to innovation, productivity, work ethics, wealth creation, being able to build something to employ people, eventually are at loss.
So after school, even still in school, you were doing side businesses. You had that heart to do entrepreneurship. I know those days you were doing buying and selling and doing those kind of things. You wanted to break the grounds, and now you broke the grounds. You are into construction, into engineering. How difficult is it for you to stand alone and do this all by yourself in Ghana, in that kind of educational setup?
Yes. Knowledge is still the requirement. I did internship when we were in school, second year. I went to one of the engineering departments under the Ministry of Agriculture. And when I went there for 1 month, I was very sad. I felt like this is not what I want to become. I saw the engineers, there's a senior engineers there, some of them with MSc and PhD. I didn't see myself there. So that made me to search more. And so I read, I was very hungry for knowledge. So any material that I could read, And so I read a lot of material business on finance, on how to develop your life, how to put your life together, and not be so much choked on the certificate. Because if you try to look for job back then, I don't have an uncle who is a big shot in the community. So his card, will not matter. My father's name, maybe they will not even listen. So the option was that, what do I do? What can I do? So I just do whatever I can do from wherever I am, and see without anybody. So after national service, I really didn't look at going to look for any job anywhere because I was not inspired. Even if there was a job, I was not inspired with the kind of works that were there. And being a young man without anything, you just fight. But the thing is, I was reading. I was reading so much because I was looking for something. I didn't know where it was, but I was looking. And so I was reading. I was reading about business, about leadership, about how to, organize your life, about structures, systems, just anything to just keep reading. Because I see that if I was to work with my degree, it would be just to go and get, somewhere to become a maintenance engineer or to go and become a maths or physics or chemistry teacher. And that, I didn't think that I could handle that. So that was it. So just searching, just reading and putting your hand to do anything that comes up and not being ashamed of it, So it's really, I didn't care of the so-called certificate or degree. I didn't really care. What could I do to feed myself and to just try to establish, if this thing could work for me. And that was the mind.
Thank you very much, Corbin Obindakun is an entrepreneur, process system engineer, and now has added on to his work as a teacher as well. Corbin, I want you to think about this question. I'll bring in another friend of mine, Christophe, who's he does finances and also talks along the same lines with you and I. Think about this question. I want to play a video. Has governments, successive governments, failed our country? And can our... So the government gave orders that people hawking and selling on pavements to get off. Nothing happened. But the chief who owns the land says, everybody get off. Have they failed us?
Okay. When it comes to Africa, this is my position. 90% of the problems of Africa is not of Africa. It's not African. I will blame our leaders just about 10%. And this is my explanation. Now, after Europeans had been here for 300 years or so, they went ahead to divide Africa 1844 somewhere, 1884 somewhere. When they did that, Ghana, they made us a very little country. Togo is also a very little country. Then after that, British tried to rule the coast of Africa. The reason the British could not enter Asante was because it was a civilization, well organized. But when we went to school, the history they told us was that when they came, we were very uncivilized people who needed help. Now, the video you showed now just goes to prove that that statement is not. You look at the power of the Asante. And yet we are trying to bring politicians to organize a place who have so much respect for their king. And that is what our understanding is. Now we are trying to say that our traditional system is useless. Sometimes those of us who are Christians, we even blame our ancestors to say that they were worshiping demons, you know? And we say that our way of education is even wrong. But everything after all these years would go to show that we have to look at how we govern ourselves. And where the people have respect is for the people we call tradition, which I don't know why we use the word tradition. These are our leaders. We listen to them. Why don't we equip them? Why don't we give them the funds? The government goes there to take the taxes, and then tells the chief that, why don't you organize your people? Go to any village, even the Galamsey. If the chief in that community tells the young people that, listen, sack all these Chinese, I can tell you that the Chinese will not be able to go.
They will leave.
What the military cannot stop, the chief and the community can easily stop it. The problem is that we think, as we were educated, that those things are unpolished, uncivilized. Just as we've been told in everything that represents us is not up to standard.
It's demonic.
You know, it's demonic. But when the Indian comes to Ghana to worship his God, that one is not demonic. Now go to Kwakufri. We just have to say that this is another belief system. I'm a Christian, I don't believe it. But I don't have to say that it's demonic, it's backward, that's why we are poor. And that, for me, has been our disadvantage. And all of us, we are guilty of that, especially those of us who are Christians. So the leadership that the so-called traditional kings and our queens can provide, we don't much respect them because we've been told that our culture is backward, our religion is backward. We've been told that. So how can we give that much respect to it? And we are even fortunate that we still have a lot of these intact, especially Ghana.
Sure.
Because if he had lost the tradition, the culture will be gone.
Will be gone. Sure.
Because if anybody wants to control you, he will tell you that your culture is nothing. And once you're able to, somebody is able to tell you that your culture is nothing, you've lost your identity. And once you don't have an identity, anybody at all, you will follow. Anybody at all becomes your hero. And that is the problem that Africa is meeting now. You know, so come to that point where we have to say that, listen, much of the things that they told us were not necessarily true. And much of it, we have to look at how we govern ourselves. If I were the government, I would give much power to the most powerful kings in our communities, in our country, and make sure that they get access to funds and move all these political representations out and structure them well.
Sure.
The people respect them, they listen to them. You know, and the whole Ghana, that's the fact. But instead of us to lift it up, we are trying to say that we have to bring it down. They are worshiping demons. They are doing this, you know. And that, for me, until we solve that, because until you embrace the culture, your traditions, you are not developing. Because if you don't know who you are, then where are you going?
That's
and yet when we go to the
if you don't know who you are, where you going? That you buy stuff from the Chinese
anywhere.
People, it is written in Chinese. It's not written in English.
No.
The French people will not throw away their culture. I don't even know how to read the Tree Bible. To be honest.
And that's a problem. The same. If I'm reading the Tree Bible, I struggle.
Okay.
But if when we were going to school, if they had taught us the Tree alongside the English, you would have been as fluent in the Tree as maybe in the English. The English, when you cross Ghana, you can use it. But for me, if you go to the Parliament of Ghana, why are we only speaking English? When 90% of our people may not even understand those things in that technical. After all, the English that I'm speaking, the truth is that I'm speaking P. That's the fact. Because my mindset is not English. When you speak to me, I interpret that in my language, which is the P, before I come to you to respond to you. So that's it. Because the culture, you cannot separate the language from the culture. So if a British Englishman is speaking English, his understanding is different from a Ghanaian speaking English. That's just basic. And so if you want to teach the Ghanaian, physics, chemistry, why don't you add what they know, what they speak? Because then they will be so much comfortable. And that's why if you look at our business even terrain, you see that most of the people who are doing well, they didn't go to school. Why? Because if you don't understand the culture, you cannot serve the culture. If you don't understand the culture, you cannot serve them. And if you can't serve them, you cannot be worthy. You know? So much of the so-called education that we are giving to people, and we say Ivy League education, really is not for the African. And that's why when they come out, after all these years, we don't know what they do with this kind of education, because they've been educated against themselves. And so when you have a degree, now you have to re-educate yourself as an African, or you will not be able to do much. Because then the culture will be somewhere, and you're also speaking the Queen's English. And every example that you're giving it from England. And majority of the people don't understand the English culture.
Our lawyers still have that gray hair on their heads. And then the British who even bought that, they don't even have it on now again. So why do you still having that thing on?
You see? Because the kind of education they were giving largely is a Western English kind of education. And so even our doctors will still think like they are American doctors, white American doctors, or English doctors. You know, instead of them to say that, okay, what are the medicines that we have from our culture? Where is the food? How can we build the health of our people?
Use them?
That's right. What do we have? No, we have to wait for the Europeans to come up with something. You know, and we are not even looking at our resource. So teaching people business is the same. All your examples you are bringing from America, after you have finished teaching them, they can't do anything with that teaching. And that's the proof that what you taught them was not important. Because what they do with what you have...
And good morning, Mr. Dako.
Yeah, I know
you have been so great by grace.
You've been soaking in from the background.
Yes.
What's your take? I know you and I have been fighting and talking. What's your take?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Dako so much for this in-depth knowledge. Yeah, so impressive. Yeah, I was starting from the education that you were giving back in school, and I also relate to that. You were never taught anything about, issues going on in our community. It was so strange. All our education system was all geared towards foreign Western world problems. The textbook that you had to use were all books from the Western world. So we ask ourselves, are we being educated to solve problems in Africa or problems in abroad? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves. And as Africans, not only leaders, we know that leaders, we count them on, but what about you and I? What can we do? The more we talk about it, then it gets published, and other people who can join forces, they can also help us to take the problems to the leaders. But when we are quiet and we don't speak about it, the problems keep hurting us. And we are the ones that suffer the most. because those leaders, my goodness, they get all that they could for themselves and their families. So I believe that whilst the leaders are those that can change affairs of things, you and I can do something. And it starts by talking about it. So I like the way that Mr. Dako has been very frank about the issues facing our country, starting way from education system. Of course, we know that we have one of the best religion. I'm talking about Christianity, but there are some aspects that we need to rethink it. Mr. Sam, I think it was about a week ago that I read that pouring libation is biblical. Pouring of libation is biblical, but we have somehow taught to believe that it's traditionalist. We need to take it out of our lifestyle. You cannot separate a person's way of life from his culture. It is impossible. And it's about time that we need to sit down as Africans to examine our culture, to look at things that can benefit us, to serve and worship our God. God relates to us the way that we are, and not based on foreign style. Each country, each nation, God responds to each nation based on its culture, based on its rules. The Bible that we use, over 70% of the New Testament are historical events, are cultural events that we need to also factor our culture in. But it's so strange that we have...
That is true. You see, when Paul was writing to the Corinth, he knew them. So there was a style of writing to the Corinth. He knew that, if he was writing, he knew the environment in which he was writing. With his headgear and all that stuff that came in, he knew their behavior and then wrote to them. But we are not applying that to ourselves. We just generalize everything. You can go to Dubai and do what you are doing you can do that. But we allow them into our country and let them do anything, everything, all over the streets, killing, muddling our staffs. Now, this morning I received a note that Galamsey have started in Mole National Park. Who introduced them to Galamsey in Mole National Park? Come on, so before we let you go, you have started educating people. Talk to us about the classes. I think I pulled up something here. Your entrepreneurship class that you are teaching young ones. Talk to us about that briefly.
Okay, so I wrote this book, Perspective, how to develop the mindset to build, to start your own business. This book I wrote about 2016 I wrote that. And this one I wrote it last year, 2020, I think. This is about finance as well. Now, when I wrote Perspective, it's the journey, it's the mindset that we are having gone through school, what I learned, and trying to start a business, what I learned. And in our country as well, when you want to start business, what you have to go through, processes, the challenges from without and from within, what you're telling yourself every day and what you constantly meet every day. And so from that, I started to teach on social media, Facebook, and then I have a lot of videos on YouTube as well. Most people give good remarks on the things that we teach, because those are the basic things all of us ask ourselves every time. And then we did a lot of talkings on Peace FM as well. That one was in P, and some other radio stations. Largely, I think that our people are ready. The only thing is that the conviction, which must come out of constructive understanding of who we are and our situation, much of it is lacking. And so the moment they get just a little information as to the reality, because when you are here, let's face it, when you finish school, you're looking for a job. And when you don't have a job, the next option is to travel, And so that's why we key at the American embassy, Canadian embassy, everywhere. Now, those who don't have much money, those who don't have a lot of links will even go to Dubai, or some of us will even travel through the desert trying to get to Libya into Europe. Why? Because the things that we have seen on TV, that when we go there, our lives will change. It really does not matter what we understand about life, about finance. and about anything that counts. And after 20, 30 years, we know that those are not really the case. And that if you have the right information and you have the discipline and you can sacrifice, you will reach where you want to go, wherever you are. Particularly, I think that is even far easier in Ghana, in spite of all the problems that people list. Because we as Africans, part of the European agenda was to make us believe that we had to look up to them. And so Africans generally are very negative towards themselves. Even when we are doing well, we're still so much very negative. If you want to build anything in Ghana, talk to any Ghanaian who lives here or lives abroad. He will tell you stop. That is part of the programming. We believe everybody but ourselves, and much of it is because when I go to some of these churches, Jesus there is white. He's painted white. So by the time I've been to church for 20 years, I don't think I'm worth anything. The devil shows up and it's black. All the angels are white. You watch a Hollywood movie, it's white. It's God. Anything evil, we say is black. Even say blacklist. So technically, systematically, Europeans, if you go to China, for instance, the Chinese man who has never been anywhere sees you African and he thinks that you are nothing. And he who is nothing thinks that he is richer and that you have come to China to hide. I remember when we were in England, somebody would ask you, so would you go back? I said, what is here that I'm going to stay? So systematically, we've been conditioned as a people to look down upon ourselves, not to trust ourselves. We don't even trust ourselves. It's a program. We can trust ourselves for the party and the ceremonies, but when it comes to doing something substantial to create wealth and build development, we think that somebody else knows it better and it's part of the program. That's why we hear a lot of statements on our leaders are not good, our leaders are corrupt. That is constantly being told us. It's a program to tell you that Africa is poor. That's why you always see it on TV. It's a program. It's not because it's true. You must constantly believe that the Africans are poor so that they will not live here. We have to move. And if you go to the airport, they're coming all the time. Chinese are here, Europeans are here. Some of them have lived here. A lot of the big companies in Africa are owned by Europeans and Americans. They don't even pay the taxes, but they continue to tell us that our leaders are corrupt. How much do our leaders steal? How much do their companies steal? So they shift our mind from the main cause so that we continue to mistrust ourselves and continue to doubt ourselves and continue to believe that they are better and they can do it better for us. It's a program. So when you see an African who has, every one of us has been affected. It's a virus. I can tell you. That's why when you were in school, you were looking for the visa. And when we wanted to go to America, we were victims. We had to go and look at America. We had to go and look at Britain. We were victims. We had to move. We didn't want to be here. Why didn't we start to look at, okay, why can't I go to Uganda or Tanzania or Benin? That was not part of it because the picture that had been shown us was nowhere in Africa is good. And that's a program. Meanwhile, if you go to Benin now, Kenya now, you'll be shocked the kind of pictures you see. I'm telling you, the kind of businesses
videos and pictures. Rwanda.
That's right. So, yes, you see that. So you see, the BBC, the CNN, they had to edit because those were the eyes that you all had. If you wanted to see anything around the world, it had to be BBC and it had to be CNN and those channels. We didn't have a common media that could show the things that were going on in let's say Burundi. So all that we could hear about Burundi is war. So growing up in Ghana, you are not even thinking that maybe there are great things in Burundi or Brazzaville. That is part of the program. And that's why even the diaspora, the African Americans, the Jamaicans, all of them, all the image that they have seen of all these traits about Africa is what? It's a backward people, unintelligent people who don't know what to do, who have corrupted. That's the picture. So they come here and they see that that is not true. Even those of us who were born here, when we go, after a while, we start to talk the same way. We still want to say Ghana is backward. I can tell you there are so many good things that are going on the continent, in spite of all the bad things. And where in the world don't you have corrupt leaders and bad things? We have them, but we are the ones only talking about all the bad things. And for me, if you want to live here and build business, you must go opposite this programming. You must start to see the good things here. You must start to believe in yourself. You must see the positive. You must trust your people, even if they disappoint you 1,000 times, because it's a way of you working against the system. You must stop being negative and pessimistic about the opportunities here, because the fact is that the opportunities are here. The Chinese, if there are no opportunities here, they will not be here. The Europeans have been here all these years. Newmont is not Ghanaian company.
Oh yeah.
You know, so there are a lot of opportunities here. The problem is that we've been told wrong, we've been taught wrongly, and we've been taught wrongly to look ourselves wrongly. You know, so the moment you start to shift the mind to say that be positive, be trustful, look at the opportunities and take them, and you can succeed anywhere. Particularly, it is far easier to start a business and build a business in Ghana than to start a business and build a business in America as an African. That is a fact.
Well,
you know,
thank you very much, Governor. It's always a pleasure speaking with you off air and talking now. Today, I had a pleasure of having you on. So that's an entrepreneur and then an engineer as well, building. He is really building. He is building markets, building houses in Ghana. He has broken the grounds and is doing it. Thank you very much. Your wife, tell Maury we miss her. She will see her very soon. Have a blessed and a wonderful weekend, Kwabena. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir.